What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Kind of Funny Reacts. This one to Spider-Man Homecoming. Very anticipated film. Very excited to hear what you guys have to say about it, largely because I know we all agree with each other.
Yeah.
Which is nice. To my left, at Game Over Greggy, Greg Miller, Gruesome Greggy.
Hey, how
the
you
man,
doing?
the myth, the
Thank
legend
you.
himself.
The magical fingers are going to work.
There it is right there. To my right, of course, the pure one, Tim Gettys.
Not Tim Most.
Tim, guys, thank you for joining me. We're going to start this like we do every Reacts to every movie. Spoiler free for the first part, then I'll pat my head, then
We'll just say, it'll be very clear
we're entering
and then
the
I'll grab
spoiler zone.
Tim's
Oh my God.
Chuchuchi, and then we're going to go.
You'll shoot your webbing.
Greg, let's start with you.
Yeah.
Now, I think you probably, out of all of us last night, were the most excited about this. I've never seen you
Really?
smile this most in my.
Oh,
this
you
much
mean
in my
when it
entire life.
ended?
When it ended.
I think going in, that was the interesting part of this. Is going into the film, Tim. I haven't worked with you that long. Hard to remember your name. Tim is the biggest Spider-Man fan in the office.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? He loves Spider-Man. He's loved Spider-Man. For me, it is that Spider-Man is my Marvel hero. Okay. In terms of my Marvel knowledge, it all started around Spider-Man, and being a DC fan, he's the one guy I've loved the longest. And so coming into this in the car, I told you when we were alone, I'm like, I need this to be good. Like this, this movie. I hope this movie's good because, as I said earlier, and I've said before, if Spider-Man was a movie that was bad and poorly received by the critics, it would be undeniable proof for everyone out there that there is a God and he hates Greg. Because if I have to sit there and Batman v Superman, a good movie, we all know it, but I have to argue with everybody as if I see the color red, but you all say it's orange, and I'm like, no, it's clear.
The dress is blue.
Exactly, it's one of those things. And so then, of course, everything else has happened with the DC cinematic universe, with the exception of Wonder Woman, is the fact if God was like, well, Spider-Man, this movie is going to be bad as well, that'd be proof. The movie ends, and all I could do was shake my head in disbelief that this is the best superhero movie I've ever seen. That they nailed it on all fronts. That my bar wasn't low going in. I know you had concerns, Tim, about the trailers and stuff.
Only based on trailers.
Yeah.
I at no point thought this movie was going to be anything less than good.
Sure, but
Based
even
on the trailers, those were bad trailers.
But even that, I was like, oh fuck, did we see everything? He was so good. Tom Holland and Spider-Man were so good in Civil War that I've made the comments before. They ruined Civil War for me, and the fact that I wanted to see him so bad. Then when we saw him and we got the entire Austin middle section with him and he went away, I was like, oh. Like, it was one of those things I couldn't enjoy.
That's how you. I don't know if your definition of ruined is the same.
I mean, like, it took away from the rest of him because I wanted to see more of him so bad.
Yeah.
And so leading up to this, like, can he carry a whole picture? Is Sony gonna fuck it up? Is it gonna feel like this is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? And fucking every one of those, man, they blew this out of the water. This movie is incredible. It's fucking amazing.
Spectacular, some would say.
Tim.
Yes.
Now you, of course, you were worried about this. You didn't outwardly worry, but you were like, we want this to be good.
I was not worried about the movie.
Okay.
I thought the trailers were not good. I didn't like the
You didn't
tone.
like the posters at all.
What?
The posters were bad. CG posters.
I didn't have a
then
problem
Greg hated
with
the posters. Someone I remember in this office hated the posters.
CG posters were bad. There's too much going on. There was a bunch of posters.
There was bad posters. There was also good posters too.
Okay.
Laying there.
Some of the earlier ones were really good, and then once it started getting all like the weird IMAX posters with Robert Downey Jr. Whatever. We're getting the weeds about stuff that doesn't matter. The movie was fucking fantastic. So happy with it. I went in. Here's my thing. When it comes to Spider-Man, I've read countless comics. I've watched almost all of the shows all the way through.
Almost all the
Some of
great
them
cartoons.
I couldn't make it through. But that's okay, because when it comes to the movies, looking back now, obviously the Raimi trilogy, very important.
Sure.
And no one would argue that Spider-Man 2 isn't one of the best superhero movies of all time.
Sure.
Spider-Man 1 does not hold up at all. And it was, me and Kevin were having a conversation about this last night. I really feel like we thought it was so good because that's all that we had at the
100%.
time. And it was good at the time because of that and that alone. It was not a good movie, and nothing about it was perfectly Spider-Man.
Sure.
Spider-Man 3, everyone has their thoughts on it. Once we got to Amazing Spider-Man, I actually liked both of those movies.
I did too.
And the reason I liked them is that I thought that Peter Parker and Spider-Man were more true to their characters and why I like those characters than we saw in the Sam Raimi universe. And in addition to that, I thought Amazing Spider-Man 2, despite having many problems, what it did super well was introduced a lot of characters in the Spider-Man cast in one movie, and it felt like watching the cartoons or reading the comics, where it wasn't just him facing Green Goblin. It was him facing off against multiple people. Rhino was in the movie, Electro was in the movie. It was just like a lot of little things that they were just kind of building up. And it didn't feel like Spider-Man 3 where it was just like
way too much
enemies. It was just more like, no, they had the right amount of screen time.
Right.
And they just felt like it was building something bigger. However, that movie was a mess because it was trying to build a universe. And it couldn't. It was trying to build Sinister Six. It was trying to build the whatever, Black and Silver, whatever the hell they're calling it these days. What I think Spider-Man Homecoming did so well is everything I loved about any of the previous Spider-Man movies, but it was put into a universe that already existed. Mm-hmm. So it didn't need to worry about the building. The building was already there.
Sure.
And then it got to take it a step further. No origin story bullshit.
Oh, so good.
Didn't need to retread. We know who Spider-Man is, and they treated us with respect. And I think they nailed it.
It's so interesting too, because I read a couple of reviews, and that was actually a deterrent for some people.
They're stupid.
They were like, we didn't get a lot of we know that at this point people should know the Spider-Man setup, but like it kind of was a little vague and they lost a little bit there. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, did they? Like, to me, I get it. Radioactive Spider, cool. Couple lines about that. That's great. Like, we don't need to see the Uncle Ben story again. We don't need to see all that stuff. We get it. I think we got enough of it here. Tim, my question for you is this the best Spider-Man movie you've ever seen?
So I did a lot of thinking last night about this because Spider-Man 2 is great. This is undeniably the best Spider-Man movie.
Good
and
answer.
I don't
Good
even think
answer.
that there's a question. I think it's easy to say that. And I wanted to make sure that I did put thought into it to make sure that I stood by that.
Right.
But yeah, no, this I agree is one of the best superhero movies to ever exist because I think that it nailed it on all fronts that it was trying to accomplish.
I agree. I would agree with that.
And also, in addition to that, I would put it up there with some of the best Spider-Man content I've seen in any medium.
Sure.
Like this, I put up there with Spectacular Spider-Man, which is my favorite
So you're
show.
saying it goes Ultimate Spider-Man,
I'm not.
Spectacular
No.
Spider-Man,
I'm
Homecoming,
saying-
and then some of the other things.
I think that the movie, the biggest worry I had going into the movie was that it was going to be too Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon in the sense that my least favorite Spider-Man is the one that is him with a lot of tech and gadgets and gizmos from S.H.I.E.L.D. or Tony Stark or whoever the hell. And I was like, there was a lot of that in the trailers for this. But I was blown away that at all times, the character in this reminded me of the Spectacular Spider-Man. It reminded me of the comics that I like because it was true to it. He is this high school kid, and they nailed the balance between Peter Parker and Spider-Man and how all of the characters relate to both of those characters in different ways at all times.
It's interesting that you say that. I was joking around with Greg that I was going to tease you that it actually felt a lot to me like some of the things I really liked about Ultimate Spider-Man. All kidding aside, I love the vibe they were able to cultivate in that cartoon of I'm in school. I'm not sure of myself. I don't really know what's going on. And there's this big, like this kind of like father character that's out there that's kind of helping me, but also I'm kind of on my own. I love that. And I also love the young Peter Parker because it just sets back the clock a little bit on all the stakes, right? Like one of the things I liked about this movie was it wasn't like Guardians of the Galaxy 2 where all of a sudden 5 billion planets were in danger. No, it wasn't about that. It was a very small story about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
But see, what I like about it is that I would argue was the biggest story ever because it's about him and his relationships and his friendships and like,
no, that's what I'm saying.
Him being
I
in
love
high
that.
school, it's like everything feels so much more important to him at that moment because he's trying to find out who he is. And they throughout the movie had multiple moments, and I don't want to get into spoiler territory yet, but there was moments that I was like, oh my God, like I am seeing a clear growth in this character throughout this movie. And it wasn't just like from beginning to end, he's a different person. It's like
little decisions
throughout the movie, decisions are being made that I'm like, this is all building towards
That's
something.
the thing. I think the biggest compliment to give the picture is the fact that not only is it an awesome superhero movie, it's an awesome movie. Like in terms of character growth, in terms of me watching it, and like I we'll talk about it, I'm sure in the spoiler section, but there's a moment where the entire theater went, and then it wasn't even that we all gasped, it was, and then everybody went, everybody started talking to each other about what was happening on the screen because it was like, holy shit, like I can't. When's the last time I was in a superhero movie that caught me off guard that way?
Yeah.
When was the last time I was in a superhero movie where, granted, and this is not a spoiler, you understand they're launching a Tom Holland franchise here, so we know Spider-Man is going to be fine for the most part. You know what I mean? But like there was multiple scenes in that movie where I literally had the sweatshirt over my face watching like, well,
how's he gonna get out of this?
I am so into this, and I'm so wrapped up in the fact they had done such a great job of
playing with our expectations.
Yeah.
in making Peter Parker a real high school student and casting, like, is like I was talking about it a little bit on the morning show today, and the fact that you look at Raimi, you look at Amazing, you look at this, and the fact that they all have different vibes to them and all got a little bit right. I think this one gets everything right and makes it feel like he is a real high schooler. They cast him with other. I mean, I'm sure I don't know these actors, right? I'm sure they're older than they seem, but they all definitely seem like they're young and high school.
Right. They're
kids.
not Andrew Goldfarb. Not Andrew Goldfarb, excuse me.
I screwed you. I'm sorry, I put that in your head.
No,
Garfield.
Andrew Garfield rolling around.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're clearly a 37-year-old
Exactly.
man.
And it's that thing of like, they're in these situations that are way too large, or he's in these situations that are way too large for him. And it is like, holy fuck, how is he going to get out of it? What is he going to do? And their juxtaposition of, how do I interact in the social circle? How do I interact with the ability that I am Spider-Man? How do I interact with adults in general? It's awesome.
So good. Is there anything that we want to say before moving to spoilers?
I would just say this, like,
dive in.
I will say this.
Go see it as soon as possible.
The movie that this is closest for me in the last few years is Logan. Logan was exactly what you're talking about, right? Logan's one of those movies that was just a standalone good movie about characters that were doing what they needed to do. Had some parts of it that we disagree with, or had some parts of it that dragged, whatever here and there. But ultimately, when you get to the end of that movie, you're like, "Fuck, man, that was just a kind of a deep dive into this guy's." Yeah, it was good. It was just a good movie about a guy that had these powers.
Yeah.
And I liked. That's kind of what I felt with this. I left and I was like, that was a good standalone movie. It didn't necessarily need to build into anything else, which is cool.
I wonder how standalone it is, though. Like, Gia's gonna see it. She's excited about it, and she is not somebody that knows any of the history. I do think this movie was a bit continuity heavy in some regards.
Sure.
Where that you definitely get a lot more if you know and if you've seen all the other Marvel movies. And I do think that to an extent you do kind of know who a couple of the characters are and a couple plot points and chronological like timeline of when things happen. Really kind of set this apart.
Sure.
Where I don't think you can just watch this.
But I think the main story of him versus Michael Keaton's character and how that plays into the rest of his world, I think will resonate.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I want to say, Michael Keaton, I thought he was fucking
shout
amazing.
out to Michael Keaton,
and
man.
I thought that the Vulture character was like, how is a Marvel villain this strong?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
is the Vulture this strong of a character?
Yeah.
Like, they really made you care in every way. And
But when you say strong,
awesome.
you don't mean like physically strong. You mean like this character is
I'm interested
terrifying
in
at
this.
first too.
Yeah.
There's moments where
Yeah.
like, fuck.
Not only I felt for him. You know what I mean?
did
From
too.
his introduction to everything that happens in that movie with him, you're like, I understand why you're being an asshole.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna move into spoiler territory now. Everyone, remember, Greg, can you pat your stomach first? I'll hit my head, and Tim, get a little tweak. We're in spoiler zone now.
Turn
My
it off
God.
if you don't want spoilers.
Yeah, stop it right here. My God, this movie had so many moments that surprised me.
Yeah.
That pleasantly surprised me, scared me. Get the gasp moment that you were talking about earlier. One of the things that I think is so amazingly indicative of what this movie is he's swinging around the neighborhood, right? And he gets to a point, and you see him do this, and it cuts, and there's nothing.
He shoots it.
And it is such.
He's like, I'm in Queens. This is what
fucking
Queens is like.
Great moment because you're like, yeah, where the fuck? How would he get anywhere? And they totally embrace that, and they totally. You can tell they made this movie for fans who are like, let's give some nods to him. Like let's play around with this character who's not sure of himself yet, who is a kid.
And I think in
that works
addition to
out well.
that, though, is I like that that was also a nod to us. Is like, we get this is the third reboot.
Right.
You've seen him swing around the city.
Right. He's in the suburbs.
What are the
right
other
now.
things we can do?
Yeah.
And they did a really good job of like making sure that it was entertaining, that the comedy, I thought, more so than most Marvel movies, was strong throughout.
Yeah.
Like it had a couple duds here and there, but overall, I was like, the jokes were fast and they kept coming.
Yeah, there was a lot of the friend. Which was a lot of Ned, but Ned
He grew
was
on
good.
me. That was the thing.
I
in
thought
the
it got
beginning,
better as he went on.
exactly. And that his ending of just like I was looking at porn.
That was fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
I liked all the casting of all the debate squad.
Yeah.
Including
Flash. Come
who
on.
I love that
Ooh,
actor
so
because
good.
if I'm not mistaken, I think he was in the Grand Budapest Hotel. And like he was one of the main characters in that, and I fucking loved him in that. All that stuff was super fun. That felt pretty organic. I actually felt like they were friends, which was cool.
And what I liked is, again, the
Tony
playing with expectations.
Revolori.
It was cool because you can kind of expect okay, cool, they're doing the Peter Parker high school, kid storyline, which is so easy to be like, all right, there's the two girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's Michelle and then there's Liz. And it's like he has a crush on Liz.
Mm-hmm.
So Liz is gonna like act like he doesn't exist and she's too cool. They're
she
they're
likes
actually
him.
friends
Yeah.
and they can have real conversations. And
Yeah.
this is like real life. Whoa.
And it turns out she actually kind of likes him too, and that's
I loved
and
it.
there's none of that teen angst bullshit.
Oh
I
my
mean, there's
God.
teen angst, but it's none of that. unrequited love for the third act until she figures out that I'm Spider-Man and then loves me. No, it wasn't
exactly.
about
That was the other thing too.
She handled it so well, and by the end of the movie, like I'm so happy there wasn't we kissed and it was this. Like this is Peter the Parker.
It was
walk.
it was a great disposable relationship. It was what a real high school relationship would be, or like the start of a high school relationship would be. And then also of him, like wrestling with, should I tell her that I'm Spider-Man?
Yeah.
And then of course not, because she's gonna come in out of your life in 2 seconds. You know what I mean? Like that was awesome that they did that. Like they did such a great job there. And like the gasp moment, I don't know how your theater reacted to it, of course, is when he gets dropped off for homecoming and walks up to Liz's house and Michael Keaton opens the door.
Yeah.
That caught everyone in our theater blindsided.
They were setting that up earlier with he has the drawing. He's like, yeah, the kid's got real talent, right? So I'm like, okay, one of the kids in this story is his kid. I did not see Liz coming though. I thought maybe it was gonna be Flash.
See, the way that started, I wasn't even sure.
Flash was the one that had all the cool stuff and was like super rich. I'm like, okay, maybe it's gonna be that.
The way I didn't even catch in the beginning when he said that to that thing. I thought he found it. I missed the line.
He was showing his friend a picture of the kid.
I thought they found it on the construction site or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't get that as set up either, but that's cute.
Yeah.
Good job.
So I assumed that was going to come into play, but I did not know they were going to go there, which was nice. And at first I was like, oh, that's an interesting choice. But then it totally makes sense because he can't have Liz anyway. Like he has to, Peter Parker's best when he's just fumbling around love, not necessarily finding it. And obviously, come on, shout out to MJ. Like that has to happen, right?
Although I like
my whole thing
is the whole thing too, though. I enjoy. Oh yeah, you need to watch Spectacular Spider-Man. It's fantastic.
Well, I don't,
but no, that was great. But I loved that moment when he opened the door. I loved it because everyone gasped, and it was a genuine moment of like, didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And then there was like is this real? Like, did he kidnap her?
Right.
And there was that moment. And then when the mom walked in, it was just like, oh, fuck no. They're really going with this. Dude. And then they did it again for me where after the whole prom scene when he goes and Spider-Man finds the Vulture in that warehouse and Michael Keaton's just kind of like talking to him, not really, like he's stalling to get the thing. Yeah. I was like, he has Aunt May. Like he
I thought he had Aunt May too.
I was like, he has Aunt May. And I was like, and the fact that they didn't do that, I was like, man, they were just getting me.
But that's the thing. The trailers did a great job of being a red herring. Yeah, where I thought it was. When that scene of I'll kill you, whatever one you care about. I thought it was gonna be like a more like Spider-Man, Raimi #1 Spider-Man of
Martha.
Go after everybody.
Like, I must have saved Martha.
You're thinking of the wrong universe.
Don't worry,
You're thinking of Morph. You're thinking of Morph.
But I also like that the whole final scene wasn't in any of the trailers.
Jesus.
Wasn't in any of the trailers at all. Like the final fight on the jet, all we saw from the trailers was him using the web to kind of turn the jet to not crash into everything. But like the final fight on the invisible jet, super cool because I was happy where it was what?
Invisible jet. It's a funny sentence.
Yeah, exactly. But I loved it because I was like, all right, he has to fight the Vulture in the air. But what's the reason to get Spider-Man in the air to fight the Vulture? And it's like, oh, having this giant set piece of it being a camouflage jet, like that's genius.
Yeah.
And I loved how vicious the Vulture was. Like throughout the movie, they did give a good setup to him where I think that it was an easy out with the time jump 8 years later because him going from construction guy that's kind of like upset and getting a stolen job to I'm going to fucking kill you and I'll blast a shocker into non-existence and shit and just like be super vicious. But I'm like, all right, cool. I don't need to know exactly what happened. I buy it.
We get it. 8 years.
Drugs and war and like having all the weapons and
Climb
stuff.
Into the
making money.
That's
what happens. But the final fight with him and Peter, I was like, this is really intense. And him throwing him on the beach and all of the razors and shit. And I'm jumping all around here. But I really want to give a shout out to the sound design in this movie.
Yeah, right.
Every weapon had such a unique sound to it. And whenever the Vulture was flying around, the subsonic like of all of the wings and all the blades coming out, I was like, man, like this movie deserves recognition for sure next year at the
Academy Awards. I would be surprised if it didn't actually get nominated. It was really well
brilliant design.
The fights were great too. And so what you're talking about, that they were brutal and they were real, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Where I think you see enough of these superhero fights and people are just punching each other, and it's like
Dragon Ball.
Like whenever anybody punches Iron Man's head, I'm like, why? He's got a fucking mask on. Like, what do you do? You know what I mean? Like, it's whatever. And like this one was very like, at no point was I taken out. Like I sometimes am when I see Black Panther fighting somebody. I'm like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think for me they did two really good things with the characters, right? They made sure that Michael Keaton was likable. Yeah. Where you were like, I actually kind of, I don't sympathize with him 100%, but I get it.
Pedro.
And by the way, shout out to every once in a while, he said something that I was like, was that Beetlejuice? Like, it was like, what do you think there, Pedro? And I was like, oh, I fucking love Michael Keaton. And then also, don't even get me started on how hard and fucking wet it makes me to see him in a costume flying around like a bat. Whatever, Kevin. It's not a big deal. But they also made Spider-Man not that powerful in this, which I fucking dug because you actually were scared for him.
Yep.
You know, what I didn't want was him. Like, granted, he got like beat up and shot putted through like mailboxes and shit. But at no point did I think he was able to like lift that bus until the ending when he lifts the entire roof. But I'm like, that kind of made sense to me. Right? He's still coming into his own.
Spider-Man moment
scene though. Honestly, to me, that was the scene in the movie. And that is one of the most iconic Spider-Man comic moments of all time, is him doubting himself. And then, but in
I was wondering if he's going to do no for Aunt May, for marriage.
Yeah, exactly. And then he fucking does it. And that's so fucking iconic. And I was actually just reading about that scene like a couple months ago.
The scene or the comic?
The comic. The comic.
Was that actually from one of the books?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and they were talking about how when they had it planned out, there was just going to be like 3 panels. And it ended up becoming this giant 2-page spread across like 16 panels.
I love it.
And it's so powerful.
It's a very poignant moment.
And honestly, the way that they shot it was so real.
It's claustrophobic for me as fuck. I was like, when
he started freaking out saying, help me, it's like, holy shit, you're a kid. You're a fucking kid. And I was scared. I haven't felt that type of fear for a character in a movie.
Yeah.
I don't even remember when. I think I might have been a kid. Since the last time I felt that way.
And that's the thing of like, again, the fact that this is the 3rd reboot of Spider-Man, second, I guess. Well, they had one that just was the one. Anyways, 3rd version of Spider-Man we've seen so recently, right? And this is the one that feels the most like, oh my God, yeah, he's a kid. He looks like a kid. He acts like a kid. He's cast with kids. He's has that moment. There's all these different doubts when he comes home crying because Tony took the suit. But then, I mean, just the whole montage in the beginning and the very, very beginning of him with a video journal. He's vlogging.
The very beginning of this Spider-Man theme song playing, the fucking orchestra
theme song, and I'm like, that's it. This is perfect. I've always
set the tone.
I've always wondered why they don't just give that subtle nod to the original to the original Spider-Man theme, and I'm like, and they did it. And it was so good.
They did it in Spider-Man 2 as well.
And then, did they?
Yeah.
But then to go from, he's vlogging, he's doing this, like the fact that he
when it is, what time period it's happening.
Sure,
and it turns out it's like
exactly. And then there's the deal of like he's just a neighborhood kid who's sticking in his neighborhood, and the guy who's like, hey, you're that Spider-Man guy from YouTube, do a flip, and he just does it, and then like, yeah. I was like, oh my God.
That moment I was like, Greg has something to quote now.
And he does the thing where he beats up the guy who's stealing a car, but it's just his car. It's like, this is so fun. And he just stands there and talks to him for a while. I was like, oh my God.
It definitely works.
It was great. And so going back to what I was saying about why I like Spider-Man, I think this movie succeeded so much because there was so many characters in it that I thought were adequately developed that weren't thrown in your face. And a couple of them were a little on the nose.
Shout out to Martin Starr, by the way, from Silicon Valley.
Oh yeah,
the teacher. God bless that guy.
But like for example, the Scorpion thing, like that I thought was
Scorpion
a little.
Tattoo on his neck.
I would have appreciated if they didn't do the focus on it the first time, because then it would have like paid off.
Which one was the Scorpion? Is it the guy that got like blown away at the beginning?
Yeah, he's the guy. Well, no, he's
in the post-credit scene at the end.
Oh, that's okay.
He got the card to the face.
But you saw him on the boat.
Right. He's the one that got caught the card in the face.
And he had the thing on him. And so there was that, but there were so many moments, like the moment that the shocker came out, like the first shocker, and you saw it, like the jacket he was wearing. I'm just like, they're fucking doing it. Like this is awesome. They're just because that's what Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery is. It is just a bunch of thugs. So yeah, they're all going to be together, and it's like we don't need this grand plan Sinister Six world building thing. Just kind of do it in one movie of just subtle shit.
And keep it small.
And then later when Donald Glover was there, like the moment, like first off, that was
shout
awesome.
out to Donald Glover and Hannibal Buress. Holy motherfuck. The supporting cast was the best part, where someone was like, let's have fun and let's put fucking Hannibal Buress as the PE teacher.
But
I think he's a war criminal now, but I still have to show you this.
I gotta show you this.
So good. But Donald Glover, like I thought he was killed it in acting. Like I haven't seen someone acting like a street thug and pull it off like that. Maybe ever. Because normally it's like, all right, you're trying too hard. But like he just fucking just the way, like Kevin was telling me, like he always had one of his eyes closed. It just felt so genuine. And then when he was having that conversation with Peter later, the second scene, the thing comes up and I saw his name. I'm like, oh my God, that's Miles Morales, his uncle. This is fucking awesome. He's the Prowler. And it's like, then they built, and then he had the line later where he's just like, I got a nephew out there. So whatever. And I'm like, they're just doing this great world building for the people that fucking are in on this shit. But you don't need, doesn't affect the main storyline otherwise.
And that was another great, the Donald Glover Spider-Man scene there at the car. it was such another great Spider-Man scene of him with the interrogation voice like Batman. He's like, "You're terrible at this," and they fuck around. And he's just leaning, sitting there talking. I'm like, this is so Spider-Man. This is so Spider-Man of just sitting there and what it can look so fucking stupid if you think about it, but when you see it there and like the way Tom Holland is acting through it, the way the mask moved, the way the costume was fabric not plastic bullshit stuck to him, I was like, Jesus.
Ferris Bueller scene.
Oh, fucking shout out to the Ferris Bueller scene, and kudos to Paramount for giving them the footage of that. It was great. No, I was gonna say huge shout out to them figuring out a reason for why the eyes move. Like it was focusing for him in like, as I don't know if you caught that or not, but that was even in his little, when he had his goggles too, they were like focusing. And I was like, that is a fucking awesome reason for why they would move. You have to, otherwise the character has zero life.
Exactly, right? Which was the biggest problem with Raimi's Spider-Man. Like,
and
I remember
with Amazing, right? Didn't
well,
Amazing
the suit moved a bit more, but I'll never forget watching, like, even for me, where you're like, we had nothing to compare it to, but watching Raimi Spider-Man in theaters, and there's that entire scene where Spider-Man is like, he's been drugged by Green Goblin on the roof, and they're walking around doing this thing, and Spider-Man's mask is too plastic to move. Green Goblin's talking through a mask. Like, it's just, you're just watching people like mime around. It was so awkward.
Like Red versus Blue more than anything. We're just kind of head nodding.
Now let me ask you guys this: Did this feel like a Sony movie or a Marvel movie?
Marvel movie.
This wasn't a fucking Sony movie.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was really worried about going in. I was like, I want to see Marvel's fingerprints all over this, and that's what really shined through. From the very first second of hearing that theme, I was like, it's a Marvel movie.
They know what they're doing,
it.
and they did such a good job. And I think something that made this movie work so well was the soundtrack, both the score and the licensed music. It was well paced and it kept things moving throughout the entire thing. Where I was just like, man, this feels right. It felt like a high school kids movie, and there's also so many subtle nods to things like the Ramones song. Blitzkrieg Bop playing throughout it all. Ramones did a Spider-Man cover a long time ago, and like they were the theme song. There's just like so much little shit that I'm like, these people fucking care, and they get what makes Spider-Man feel like Spider-Man.
Yeah, there was a couple things that kind of made me sad about the movie. The biggest one of which, though, was seeing Spider-Man back in this universe. I'm like, fuck. I really wish we could see an X-Men movie in this universe. Like, I really wish we could see mutants in this universe, like, and what they would do with Wolverine, because that would be so fucking awesome.
It'll happen.
I know it'll happen one day.
It'll be awesome.
Anything you guys didn't like about the movie? Because there's a couple things to me that stuck out that I was like, it was a weird choice. Namely, Karen.
Really?
It was weird to me that he had a sidekick and then another sidekick halfway through. I understand why they had to do it.
One's a Spider-Man sidekick and one's a Peter Parker sidekick.
But then he eventually had this Peter Parker sidekick, became the man in the chair. I thought they were building up to that, but then he didn't need the man in the chair because Karen was there.
No, he knew the man in the chair at the end, remember? That's when he got to do it. He got to say, "I'm the man in the chair."
I get it. Don't get me wrong. It's not like a
Karen.
make or
God,
break moment
that whole thing, I love so much. That was another great Parker luck moment of him being locked in. Locked
it sounded
in the
like
thing,
Scarlett Johansson
pulling on the door, doing all that stuff, and then how long have I been in here? 34 minutes or whatever.
Him like talking to her about Liz. Yeah, so good.
And then you should do it, Peter. Say something. He's like, no.
Well, another thing I forgot to say this when I was talking about. I loved the world building of just having the different characters, like the Tinkerer being the guy making all of the.
Yeah, is that how that was?
And I'm like, that's super awesome.
Kevin, who did the voice? Do you know? No shit.
Jennifer Connelly.
Jennifer Connelly did the voice of that? That's awesome.
Getting back in that Marvel universe.
Awesome.
She can't get away.
She almost had it with Hulk, but
things I didn't like. I didn't really like some of the acting, especially of the younger kids. I thought Liz was really weak.
Really? I thought she was okay.
I thought Ned
had
that,
like, very
a lot
innocent.
of lines that were like, ugh. But yeah, Liz, most things she said, her lines were fine, but I thought the delivery was like, all right, this is why they hire older people to do this.
She played the character perfectly, I think, to me. She was supposed to be like that portrait of innocence that was about to get destroyed, like the destruction of innocence toward the end. So I didn't mind her for that. I don't mean that way. Get your fucking head out of the gutter. Look at you, you sick son of a bitch.
I just had to look at the camera. All the kind of funny best friends wanted to know if Nick was about to go there.
No, I was not about to go there.
She's that portrait. The quote is, she's that portrait of innocence that's about to get destroyed.
Fair enough. You can take that as you will, Twitter. No, but I thought she did a good job. I will agree that I think Ned did a great job. I just feel like there was a lot of Ned. Like they used him a lot for comedic relief, and some of that could have been toned in a little bit. But again, this is like very minor shit that I'm talking about.
See, my thing is, I at the beginning I was like, "Ooh, this seems like a lot of Ned," but then by the end I was like, "I fucking love
Ned.
Ned in that hat,
and his last line where he's like, "I was looking at porn." Yeah, that fucking floored me. Also, I mean, shout out to Marissa Tomei. Did a fucking great job.
So
all the subtle nods of how hot she is, I was like,
I loved it because they're fucking in on the joke. It's just one of those things. Is like, how do we make Spider-Man better? This is our third time. Hot Aunt May.
Hot Aunt May.
It's like,
Why
that
not?
won't work. It's like, oh my God, it worked. It worked so well. I liked it because it made it. This is such a fresh take on a character and universe that we love so much. And talking to Brian from Insomniac about the upcoming PlayStation 4 game, something I like so much is that he gets that he's like, we got to do it the same but different enough and respect what you think Spider-Man is, but make a new Spider-Man that you like just as much.
Yeah.
And I think that this movie did that for me, where I liked that Flash wasn't the same jockey white dude.
Right.
He was a fucking
nerd.
A fucking nerd.
Yeah,
He's the king of the nerds. He's the dick of the nerds. That's awesome.
He's the rich boy nerd. Yeah, I love
and
that.
Mary Jane not being the Mary Jane character we know, but instead being, I thought Zendaya killed it.
She did.
She was great.
Really
She
fun.
did. She did awesome, and all of her moments I thought like were great. And she was such a kid. Like she's such a like that bitchy fucking kid that thinks she's better than everyone else, but still wants to be there. I'm like,
Well, that was my whole thing. When Nick and I were walking away, we were talking to Sean Finnegan about it, and Sean was like, "Oh, it's just not the Mary Jane I know," and it was being interesting. I'm like, I don't think the next Spider-Man is going to be them falling in love and doing. I think they're going to continue to be kids for a while because that's what sets this apart from everybody else. Like I love watching him fail in a way I wouldn't want to watch Thor fail.
Yeah.
But it is him getting dragged through the streets, slammed into trash cans, missing his jump. Like you know what I mean? Like in that opening montage of him patrolling, just and he's like, I'm all right, I'm okay. Yeah, it's because like of course you know what you're fucking
it's
doing.
great, and I love that there is all of these differences, the characters, where I'm like, oh, I like this. I like this change.
Yeah.
I like these
Yeah.
versions, and I think that Aunt May might have been my favorite because the scene of her helping him get ready for homecoming and then dropping him off, I'm like, I
love it.
Man, this brought a whole new level to her
played,
character
well-written.
that we've never seen before. I mean, I've never seen before. I'm sure there's some different variation somewhere, but like Aunt May has always been a very specific thing, and this
Something
is
like grandma.
This is a different character.
Yeah, she's
and-
always a grandma.
and it worked for me very, very well. And this whole movie, I was very impressed by all the changes and liking them.
Yeah, I like
'Cause
that.
It's easy to fuck things up.
And I like Aunt May, and I like that I'm looking forward to her playing a bigger role in other Spider-Man movies.
The fucking end, the
Yeah,
final
that
scene
was
before the credits.
Fucking so good.
Yes,
Fucking so good. And then the credits themselves were awesome, including the final credit, post-credit sequence where you're like,
I'd say the funniest of the
Arguably the best.
Usually, since Avengers, they've done the thing where one of the post credits is story driven and one is just a joke,
Silly and fun.
I thought it was the funniest joke one, and a
was very
solid post credit thing too, where the post credit scene not only sets up a villain for the next one, but also makes Michael Keaton more of a developed character where you're like, shit, where does he stand?
That was an interesting endpoint because I was like, at first I'm like, I know he's not gonna tell people who Spider-Man is, but I don't know if it's gonna be because of revenge or fear of the family or because Spider-Man saved him. But that end sequence, I don't know if he actually saved him or not. Like, I guess he did.
He saved him. Yeah.
Did he?
Spider-Man saves Vulture there at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's
100%.
why, like, because he makes the reference of like how you saved
didn't
my
kill you
daughter
before,
or
you saved
whatever.
my
So
daughter,
yeah,
yeah.
and so I think this is his thing there. But I also think it is that he wants to get out and fucking get him himself.
Yeah.
I don't think he wants Scorpion, whoever, to go get him.
That's what I figured. That's
yeah.
what
Yeah. No.
Well, guys, thank you so much. I think we all unanimously agree that people should go see Spider-Man.
And the costume was awesome.
fucking great.
Seeing
Oh my
you can
God.
see like the fabric. I just
Sorry.
love fabric suits, and you don't see that anymore in
But
these fucking superhero
shout
movies.
out to that end costume that he's going to eventually be in with all the tech in it.
Oh, how did you come down on RDJ? Was there too much? This is a big concern going into the
I
flick,
love
right?
RDJ.
He was
I thought-
fucking awesome.
no-
I thought
thing
there
as
was
too
too
much
much
RDJ.
happy.
Yeah.
They're a little too much.
There was a
happy.
lot of him in this movie, and my problem was it reached a point where it's like I don't want to see Peter call him 5 times and have him be like, "Why are you calling me by?"
Yeah.
And they did that.
And
Like,
he only picked up when it was convenient for the
like,
story too.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
that was
once
a
or
little
twice would have been fine, but like otherwise, it was like, oh, this just seems a little bit.
Here's
excessive.
a question too I have, I guess, for you, Tim, because I think you keep it all straight, the most straight. Stick with me. I want to say Age of Ultron. Is that no? It was Civil War, maybe. It was Civil War. Civil War was the last time we saw Iron Man on film, right?
Yes.
I took away from that him and Gwyneth Paltrow's character had broken up and were done.
That's what I thought too.
Because they did they made a big deal of it going through. Kevin, get on your mic. They made a big deal of it going through, and then in this one at the very end, she comes out. Now I guess they could still work together, but then he makes a reference to the ring. What do you got for me,
Well,
Kevin?
they make out.
I think that they had taken time apart.
They just had a little tiff.
In the start of Civil War. He mentions that we're not really talking right now.
Yeah, because after Iron Man 3, right, there was the whole I'm supposed to not be Iron Man anymore.
Yeah.
And then, she had the whole thing where she turned into Fire Person or whatever the fuck that was. And then he was like, I'll save you, don't worry. And then I'm going to quit being Iron Man. And then he just goes right back to being Iron Man. So I assume
So that's the thing. People bring that up all the time as like the easy thing to throw away between Iron Man 3 and Avengers 2. I rewatched them recently, and it's like that's not the. He talks about it's the whole not needing the suit thing. It's not like I'm giving up being Iron Man.
Not that he didn't want to be Iron Man anymore, but either way, I think behind the scenes, they just couldn't get it for the other movies, so they had to kind of
I'm
explain it
fine with
away.
that, but I need just a short explanation.
I didn't. Gwyneth Paltrow.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not
I was like, fuck yeah, they got.
I
Gwyneth
loved it.
Paltrow.
I mean, I'm fine. That was
Success.
rad. That was great. That whole interaction was great too. It's just
think-
that is my biggest complaint is I feel like there is this jump, these hard cuts that like if I was missing a tie-in comic book, maybe I'd be like, oh, okay, cool.
Fair.
It's on me.
It's fair. See, to me, I love that relationship
I'm
so
not
much.
knocking
And
it. No, I love it too.
I think the Pepper Potts RDJ, like Gwyneth Paltrow RDJ chemistry is arguably one of the best that Marvel's ever put on screen.
Sure.
So
No, I'm with
was
you
like,
on all
cool.
these things. Yeah, I know. I'm cool with it. It's just like I wish. I'm like, did I miss something? Did I misinterpret this?
Now, what do you think of that suit at the end?
Suit's cool.
I thought it was cool. I mean,
I like his
whatever,
normal
it's just
suit.
another
I like
suit.
his-
I like
Yeah,
the
this
normal
one's
suits,
great.
yeah.
But like, I like that he didn't have the new suit at the very end.
Me too.
And
I
also,
like that they gave him the
shot from the
training suit.
trailer of Iron Man and him flying through.
That we all were like, that
mountains.
looks shitty.
Was what?
Of him swinging and Iron Man's flying next to him. I thought the CG looked terrible in that. I was
Oh my
like,
god!
I'm
I
glad it
was like,
wasn't
that
in the
was
film.
fucking awesome.
There
But yeah,
were
we
there
didn't
were
get
a
that scene
couple
at all.
shots in this that weren't as polished as I wanted.
Well,
them
it's
to
not
be.
so, for me. It's not so much polish. It's what's interesting is the Amazing Spider-Man movies made an effort to be more practical with the
Filming on location,
choreography and with the fights. So most of the Spider-Man acrobatics, that was actually
person.
somebody moving around doing stuff and like doing fights. Whereas this went back to the CG. But I didn't think it was too bad. Like,
I
I
thought it
mean,
looked great.
there's some parts where I'm like, all right, it's obviously CG, but I liked it because the parts that it was him practically moving, like him on the roof in his room.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is how
was
Spider-Man
fucking
should
cool.
move.
Yeah.
But one of the only real action scenes in this movie was the boat Titanic thing of it breaking in half and him
ferry,
going through and doing it all. I fucking loved it. And it again reminded me of why I love Spider-Man. I loved him being like, spider grenade. I'm like, this is some Marvel vs. Capcom shit. I'm just like, you run around screaming and like going through it. And the way he moved, I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking great. Film was great. I loved the suit. There was like the moment of him, I think eating the sandwich and we were shot from behind and have the old, or the current, but like my Spidey back symbol on there. Just that little round spider. I love so fucking much. I just love this fucking film. I can't wait to go see it again.
Yeah, no, I'm very, very excited to see it again.
Well,
Do
that
you want to institute kill mode? No. Stop
no, stop asking that. Any closing thoughts, guys?
There's some big thing I wanted to bring up, but I don't remember what it is. So I don't know. I'll
Check
put
your
it
Twitter.
out
Check
at
back
some
in,
point.
check back in on the comments when this video posts. Everyone out there, let us know when you get a chance to see Spider-Man: Homecoming what you thought. Are you gonna gush about it like we are? We're just all these Google-eyed little idiots for Tom Holland.
Don't make me break
talking
your
about
arm
his abs.
again.
Talking about his abs. Was that you or me talking about his abs last
It
night?
was you,
Yeah,
probably.
it was. It was
I
pretty
think Tom
disgusting.
Holland. He looks great, but it wasn't what I was caught up on.
That's fair enough. Ladies and gentlemen, we love you. Thank you so much. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Definitely let Tim know if he forgot something. Let me know if we forgot something. Let Greg know.
I don't wanna know
how
if I
much you
forgot
love
anything.
his hair.
Yeah.
And we will see you on the next one.
Don't forget, Batman v Superman, better movie than Dark Knight Rises.
Unfollow Greg on Twitter.